Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing this talk. I know we have choices today. Thanks to Cameron and team for organizing this amazing event with 2 tracks for the first time. It's been really good. So today I'm going to share you a couple of stories around how to measure quality, and it's beyond the number of bugs in today's testing world. So, little bit about me. I am Deepika, for those who don't know me, and I'm a quality engineering manager. And I began my career as a developer. To be honest, I didn't stick there for too long. And I made a decision to become a traditional tester. And when I say traditional, I mean I was a tester who took pride in finding bugs, like hidden treasures. And my role was to be that gatekeeper, that final boss standing between the product and the user, signing off, ensuring quality. So there were times where I really loved that role, but it was frustrating when we were stuck in that indefinite loop of defects, context switching, and never-ending sprints, right? So, but everybody has that defining moment in their life. And that was the light bulb moment for me. And it happened back in 2018 when I was a senior QA. Along with me, there was another QA who were working on a very complex project. We were delivering a SaaS platform to one of the financial services, and it had many integration partners and everybody. And I was asked to prepare a report for the final go no go meeting, and it was not even in production because it was kind of agile model, like waterfall agile model we were following. And I did a very simple report in Jira, just adding the dates, project name, and filter type box. Can anybody take a wild guess how many defects would I would have raised in over a year for that project? 150? Oh, that's too much. Thank God it was not that much, somewhere in between. So it was 450 bucks. And most of it was by me. So the creator was me. I was very proud of it, but I started to think that there must be something wrong with this approach. Definitely, we can't sustain like this, raising so many bugs, and we were all frustrated. Definitely, developers were not happy whenever I was like, here, this is the bug for you. So, and those bugs were very fairly silly as well. Sometimes they used to deploy and we test it and it was not deployed. Such simple things. So, we needed to find a way out of this, and okay. Sorry, 1 second. Yep. I'll go back. Yeah, it's fine. So we needed to find a way out of this, and that's where this whole new concept, and I was talking to Anne-Marie this morning that I saw her blog on that, newsletters on that, and this was the much talked about approach in other side of the organization around how we have to look quality holistically and how it is everybody's responsibility. So that was my aha moment when I found out that, it's just not my problem. I had to bring everybody to the problem and make them realize that we can solve this together collaboratively. And many doors opened to me, and everything started to look very different. But there's always a but, right? So this needed me to change as well. So every next level of your life will demand a new, different you. That meant that I was a tester who had to evolve from being a gatekeeper to becoming an enabler. As cool as it sounded to be a coach, it was scary because we didn't know how to be a coach. And we knew we were told that it's a shared responsibility, you have to do it together, collaboration and everything, but who would help us? It was very difficult. So, and by the end of this talk today, if you are in the same boat or if you're facing similar feelings, or if you're in a dilemma, do you want to take this approach or not, maybe you'll have some tips to take it away with you. Some of the tips that you can start putting these seeds in your teams on how can we share the responsibility. Or if you have already been in this journey, you would also get get a framework, agnostic framework that you could go back, use to drive a courageous culture in your teams. You have established this, but how do you know you are actually going in the right direction, and how can you measure success? And that's what you will know from today's talk. And, and if you ask me, was it the right decision? I must tell you, I have really enjoyed my journey since embracing this change in leading teams through this wild ride of transitioning from traditional side of testing into more quality focused approach, and leading teams who are quite established in this approach, but they were quite struggling to improve. So they know it's a shared responsibility, but it was difficult for QAs to improve the visibility on how they are helping the teams. And this is how I explain the ride. And I asked ChatGPT to give me a humorous image with different kinds of emotions of transforming the quality journey. And I also asked, some people should be falling out of the ride, but somehow ChatGPT didn't like to provide me that even after multiple attempts. I had to coach it well, but it didn't listen to me. So as you see, it was a thrilling ride with successes, unexpected twists, and few probably shouldn't have done moments too. And how did we start this ride? So we started this by building some strong foundations, those guardrails that would keep us on track, help us drive those behavioral changes that we needed in the teams, we needed in every person in the team. And how did we do that was by setting some core foundational principles. And these principles started acting as our reference points, our standards that we always wanted to go back to. And this guided us throughout the process whenever we had to navigate through some tricky conversations on some difficult person who is not ready to understand. Like, it was very difficult, right? We are asking developers, why don't you write a testable code? And no, that's not my job. I'm just pushing it. You can test it. That was kind of an attitude when we started this few years back. So these principles definitely helped us to, have those right conversations with the team. But when you set these principles, my mantra is less is more. Not more than 3 to 5 principles that cover core values that defines your organizational goals and your role as well. So that is really a strong one, explaining what a quality engineer does in a team. Setting those expectations could be one of those principles too. And don't use all those jargons or buzzwords, because it's very easy for teams to be like disconnected when they hear big words, shift left, coaching, and that was the mistake that we did when we started, because they were not ready to onboard. So break it down and help them understand. All we are trying to do is sit together earlier as possible and collaborate more during the process. And after this, the next step was setting practices, because principles will be just floating words if we are not going to do anything about it. So we need to have some proven practices there. If we say that one of the principles is quality is a shared responsibility, how do you do it? It could be as simple as, let me pair with you on a ticket before you start picking it up. Don't call it, let's do a card kickoff, because it didn't work out for me. So we started small, taking small steps. I remember taking so many sprints to reach a step wherein I had done this pairing with all the developers in a team. It was more than 6 sprints, because I could choose only one developer a sprint and do a card kickoff, and not calling it a card kickoff. And then later it was, the developers picked up in the retro saying that, that session we had with Deepika was really helpful. Why don't we do it every time? So let them be involved in the process of setting these practices and then publish it. So this is the practice that helped us to stick to the principle of sharing responsibility. And in all these things, the third P is the people, right? They play a very important and key role in helping you provide this new approach for them. So that's why I call this to have an effective quality engineering. These are the 3 Ps that you can start with as a foundation or as a framework. So it takes time. This whole thing took me around almost 6 to 8 months to do a lot of workshop with all the QAs, onboard them on this new journey, because you have to first help them understand that this is going to change your role a lot, and you will play a very different role than what you're doing, but it will be much more responsibilities to you, because you're not just a tester anymore. And after doing all these things, let's fast forward to some of the years. But how did we know that Are we doing really well? How to measure success? Have we shifted left enough? Or is it too much left? Or is it too much right? Because I also got to manage few teams who had shifted left long back. They were proud about it, but they had somewhat forgotten the right side of it. So how to get that balance of having right practices in every step of the software development life cycle? So again, I asked ChatGPT to give me a confused image, and it kind of tells you that we're all blindly trying to improve and trying to have more practices without having a way to measure it. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today on. If you can't measure something, you can't improve it, because measurement itself gives you a starting point to improve it. And this is where benchmarking is really important to understand, where am I, where do I want to be, and how do I get there? So to explain how we did things, I'll just give you a picture of the engineering composition in my previous organization. So I was looking across 35 cross-functional squads, which were distributed in multiple business groups. So it was a Spotify hybrid model, like groups, portfolios, tribes, squads, and comprising of around 300 plus people in different diverse roles: tech, product, data, delivery. And total, we had only around 14 QA professionals. So if you look at the numbers, definitely it is undoubtedly challenging to manage the visibility and quality across such big number of teams. And needless to say, everybody had their own set of practices, because every team has their own unique needs, and we have to cater to it. And you can't have one solution for all the teams. What's a better way of working for one team might not work for another team. So some of the struggles that my team, QAs, found out was, they often struggle to understand how their unique skills and learning potentials can be best utilized in each team they support, so that they can maximize their value. So they were a bit confused on, okay, I'm not just testing anymore, but I don't know how to help the team. I find it's fine, they're all doing their own, they are doing their testing as well. So how do I know where my effort should go? And floating across multiple teams was a challenge for them, because a constant shift in focus and priorities were diluting their ability to maintain a sharp eye on quality. It was very easy for them to have blind spots, because 12 QAs, 35 squads, I couldn't stretch them enough. On an average, even if they had 2 squads at a time, it was very easy for them to miss something in one place when they are not there in other. And at last, I think it's been touched upon by some of the speakers here today, and we'll have one more talk in the evening, that very, very less spotlight was given to QA. Despite all the good work we do, it was very easy for us to go behind the scenes, because we are not those gatekeepers anymore, or we are not showing up in the final results. We are spread out. It was very easy for them to get demotivated and not shown up at all. So it was my role to help them show up more. As Cam was saying this morning, that we have to do more showcases. We have to be more vocal on what our role is and prove our value. And that was one of the leadership challenges as a leader I had for my team, that there was no real metrics for us to understand where we are with quality, or even have those conversations with the leader that, I need more QAs. Why? I had to give some data to them. So there was no data-driven decisions that we could make. And also the teams were a bit confused on, I don't know what to expect from them anymore. Okay, there is a QA, there is not a QA. This quarter I have some support, but next quarter they are not here. So what are they doing? So setting that expectations was also difficult. And scaling the QA support. So I had to ensure that I'm not burdening them by giving them more teams. And also we have right support for the right high-risk projects at the right time. So these were some of the challenges that we were trying to solve. And Quality Health Check was the initiative that I kickstarted, which helped us answer most of these challenges. So what is Quality Health Check? So this was a strategic review of all the practices that we had in place to help us identify on areas we are excelled, what we are doing really good, on what are the things that we can do better in any given team. And it was a measurement tool to help us measure the information flow in the team. Is everybody understanding their role well? Are they set up adequately to test the changes that they have? Do they understand what it means to share the responsibility of quality? And are there any bottlenecks? So basically measuring each and every aspect or the touch points where the QAs were contributing to. And by conducting regular health checks, we were able to gain valuable insights in our current practices, processes, and also, celebrate those wins where, this team has been doing really well and this QA has made a beautiful effort in, uplifting the capability of this team and celebrating those moments for my QAs. And continuous improvement and driving this culture was really important, because just now in previous talk, Mithun also mentioned how important it is to have this growth mindset and continuous improvement in your team so that we always know that there is something to look forward to. And lastly, this helped us to bridge the gap between the theory and practice. We are not just talking about the principles, but also living by them. So how did we do that is by introducing a regular review process in the form of a survey. And we prefer to keep it anonymous, at least in the beginning, so that people feel safe, psychologically safe to provide candid feedbacks. And we rated it to get the quantified results out of the subjective survey, because every different person feels different about each criteria. So how do we quantify it is by having a rating scale from 1 to 5, where if you are agreeing or strongly agreeing, you know the value of this particular practice in the team and you want to keep it. There's nothing much to improve on it, but we'll monitor it. But if it's a neutral, I'm not really sure. Maybe we are wasting too much time in talking about same things in multiple forums. And if it's red, I think we have to discuss. Let's talk about this. And the most important aspect was to get the balanced and holistic view from every role in the team, including yourself as a QA. If you feel like you're not every time you can't wait for someone to call you, but even if you are trying to, be more proactive, you're not getting enough context, or if it's a delivery lead. So every role were asked to give this view in the survey. So this is the framework that you can adopt without having any tools or anything in your workplace. And the first step is analysis. And this is a very important step that we should not be rushing. Take as much time as you want in this step until you feel confident that you have onboarded your leaders, you know what are you trying to improve in your teams, because doesn't make sense to have greens. If something is working, there's no point in keeping them as criteria. So you have to look for those target areas where you want to see some improvements. So talk to your delivery leads, talk to your developers, try to understand, okay, what is it that you want to see improvement in, and create those criteria. It could be questions, it could be statements, but keep the tone same so that they will be able to help and they'll be able to assess the criteria in a similar way. And next is preparing a survey. As I mentioned, use the same scale. Instead of agree, you want to do something else, but keep it same across all the teams so that you can have a trend. You can watch the trend across all the teams. And we used to do a workshop with all 10 teams coming together, and every QA would have their own problems to solve, but we would come in and say, these are the criteria that I want to show it to my team, what about yours? And we would get ideas from each other. So we decided all the teams will have 10 criteria so that it is easy for us to benchmark, but criteria would differ. But we would categorize it on different kinds of things, like shared responsibility is one, confidence is one, shared understanding is one, things like that. The next is onboarding your team. And this is so important, because if you don't give the why for your team, they will not understand the purpose of this survey, because this is just not another survey where you just go tick, tick, tick and move on, because they have to reflect on each criteria and say that this is working or this is not working, why. So help them understand why we are doing this health check and what are you going to do with the results, and what is their role in it. So onboarding, and this is one time, right? But every time you have a new team member, make sure that you onboard them too. So onboarding is really important because we had seen failures because this was not done right. If you don't understand what is this, if you're not leading it right, maybe you'll not be able to explain it to your teams. So understand what you're trying to achieve out of this health check and take your team through this journey. Next is running a survey and let everybody take it. It can be anonymous based on engagement of the team. And retro. So this is again a very important step on what you do with the results. And this retro has to be small, attendee-driven, inclusive, structured, and more importantly, interactive. So this facilitator, mostly it will be the QA champions who will be running this, has to ensure that they provide a safe space for the team to be okay to be challenged. If they are saying agree, but you know that something can be changed, you should be okay to challenge. Okay, can I ask you questions, further questions on why you think it's still okay? So it should be okay to make observations and not conclude on something that is not right. So monitor the energy of the session and ensure that you have some actionable outcomes from this retro. And lastly, this is again, I'm saying all steps are equally important, right? Because if you have to have the effective framework and it's just not another survey, you have to ensure each and every step is executed well. So in this one, you will, anyhow, everybody will know what are the responses for each of the criteria. You have to be transparent that 5 of them agreed, 3 of them did not agree, and everything. And then you'll publish the report, and this is the chance wherein you can, show it to the leadership, use this data as one of the metrics to talk about quality. And as a leader, this was my go-to metrics to, have those conversations that this team needs more time from a QA, and we don't have those resources. I need more time, or we need to do automation because this is the trend that we are seeing in many teams. So collating all the results, defining the themes there, and getting a quality strategy outcome out of this health check was one of the main activities that I was doing. So over the quarter, there are 10 teams, and most of them have similar problems around documentation. I think we have to work on it. So let's put together a working group and define what are those artifacts that we can define for the teams. So things like that. So I'm going to share you one small criteria on how you can run it with your team. So the criteria I have chosen here is a very basic one. If you are new to this journey, and this is one thing that you have to keep reminding the team and ask the team about it, on how well they know that the quality is being shared across the team. So do you see your team members, including yourself, owning quality at all the stages? So this is one criteria. And you ask people to vote on it, they submit the vote. But the important thing is you encourage them to add comments on if it's working, what's working, if not, what can be done better. And then an interactive retro where you will show off all the results. But one thing we can do differently here is that just don't go by the majority of the votes. Start those conversations, even if you see majority and agreeing, because this was one of the problems that we faced. Some teams were playing safe because they didn't want to do more. If it's amber, it means that more work for them, right? So we have to repeat few things. So let's all be green. So you're asking those questions and challenging. Okay, even if it's one person not agreeing, asking them and making that whole criteria amber, because you have to change something, you have to monitor it. So it's not about the colors, or it's not about how green you are. It's all the opportunities that you can find through this health check to improve in your teams. And the example I have taken here is around bug bashes and PR reviews. And some of the comments we got was, we are confident with our daily work, but we are not confident with bug bashes. So actions as a team we agreed is, we'll try to have a QA in the bug bash as much as possible. If by any reason there is no QA, we'll try to have a template ready, a Trello board template that everybody could use, that could help them guide what are the things that they have to have ready before planning a bug bash. So these are the actionable outcomes you get, and you will monitor it throughout the quarter and organically have these conversations in other retros as well. So having done all of this, I started this health check in one squad 2 years back, and it was very important for me to find somebody who is motivated enough to drive changes, a delivery lead, so that he'll help me onboard one of his squad, and then slowly we iterated into multiple squads. And now, in last 2 years, we have done this for across 40 squads in multiple business units at REA. And we use this as one of the key operational quality health check metrics that gives us more visibility as QAs to speak in operational meetings, monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, that our quality health check is 80%, 60%, and trigger those conversations. So one of the example of one team on how we achieved was after 8 quarters. So this is the metric. So previously, when you saw the numbers, we didn't have any data to show. It was just number of teams we had. But now if you see, from Q1 to second year of Q3, the number of practices becoming healthier has improved, and we have reached the OKR of 80%. And previously, we didn't know what teams needed more help or where to have more QA support. And now we can make those data-driven decisions that team A is green and it's 80 green. I think that I could take the calculated risk of allocating that QA from team A to team B because that team needs more help. So I was able to make those decisions and not overburden my QAs. Okay, you be everywhere because there are less QAs. I was not going to do that. And we also wanted to, have some quantitative metrics which matter to the leaders. They also wanted to see how these practices are directly reflecting cycle time, lead time. So over the quarters, this was the improvement in cycle time overall and also throughput. And we started having this metrics, maturity of quality progress is 84% green in every quarterly meetings. So we could talk about what are the grids that we have. Is it automation, and do we need more time for automation and stuff? So I think I have conveyed most of the learnings that we had over the time on how we can avoid limited improvements by not playing safe, false positives, and limited engagement in retros, how you can, increase the engagement by making them feel safe to be challenged. And also this is very subjective, so helping them understand the context of each question so that they all vote in a similar fashion. And one of the main problem we face that now last 2 quarters was around survey fatigue, because everybody's like, okay, not again, we have to do this survey again. So what we started to do was, okay, now we have passed 6 quarters and we know what are the things that are working. So let's just cut down from 10 criteria to 5. What are the main core 5 things that we have to check? Or even step up. So we have the foundations laid. So what are the next things that we want to verify? And also some of the actions needed more than 3 months for us to verify. So we increased the frequency to 6 months based on the team's maturity and team's actions we had. And the last problem was on QAs. No matter how much it helped us to be on top of the game and be more visible, do more showcases, there was a lot of manual reporting work that we had to do because we didn't spend enough time on designing any websites to maintain the data. So it was all Excel sheets. Maybe we would have done it going further if you wanted to do more of this. So final thoughts to recap. So we discussed the evolving role of a tester and the 3 Ps of effective quality engineering. And we explored how to measure the impact of best practices across the teams by running a holistic survey and providing that psychologically safe environment for the teams. And we also dwelled into the strategies for gaining visibility and metrics. And now I would encourage you to take these strategies back to your teams and start integrating these metrics and continuous improvement practices. And this will be your one such initiative that you can drive and lead and gain more visibility. But remember, the goal is to embed quality in every phase of the software development lifecycle, ensuring it's a shared responsibility. And thanks all for your time and attention today. It's been a pleasure sharing my experience.
Any questions for Deepika? Maybe Deepika has a question for you.
Okay.
There you go.
So what are the 3 Ps of...
Fast.
Yes. Yes.